So, Morai was a Convor who was linked to the daughter from Mortis and followed Ahsoka around throughout her life after the Mortis arc in the Clone Wars. Although Morai has been strongly linked to the character of Ahsoka for a while now, we don't really know just how significant Morai is to the former Jedi. But today, I believe that I've found evidence to suggest that Morai is extremely important in the life and death of Ahsoka. So, this theory starts with a key part of Morai's character, her name. Now this detail is nothing new, but recently I realised that it may actually hold some deeper meaning, unnoticed for all this time. 2 weeks ago I released a video about the Great Mothers in Ahsoka, and how their names reference a trio in Greek mythology. I won't get into all of that right now, but to put it simply, they were based on a trio which ensured that every being lived out their destiny, and this trio was known as the Morai. The second I saw this when researching the Great Mothers, I knew that I had to think deeper about Morai, as the names Morai and Morai are just too similar to be coincidental. Also, Filoni's obvious referencing to the Morai in Ahsoka makes me absolutely sure that he knew of the Morai when making Morai. So yeah, I'd say that Morai is intentionally named after the Morai from Greek mythology. But what does this reference mean for the character of Morai? Well, to explain this, I'm going to have to go into a bit more detail on exactly what it was that the Morai did in Greek mythology. Basically, there were 3 beings, Clovo, Lachesis, and Atropos, and each of them had different roles. Clovo had control over birth, deciding who was born and when. Lachesis decided the length of life for each being, and in some texts controlled destiny. And Atropos chose how each being dies. Now at first glance, these roles look unrelated to the character of Morai, but this actually isn't the case. To start, let's look at Clovo, who controlled birth. This actually links quite nicely to Morai, through the Clone Wars. In the Clone Wars Mortis arc, Ahsoka is sadly killed. However, this isn't the end for her character, as the daughter, in her dying moments, transferred her life force over to Ahsoka, resurrecting the Jedi Padawan. Now, Morai the Convor wasn't specifically there for this event, but I don't think this matters, as both the daughter and Morai appear to be the same character in some way. This is because Ahsoka tells Ezra that she owes Morai her life, which is almost definitely referring to this resurrection. Anyway, I believe that Ahsoka being brought back to life lines up with the role of Clovo quite nicely, with Ahsoka being effectively reborn with the daughter being involved. I understand though, that to some, this evidence may not seem strong enough due to Ahsoka being resurrected and not born in this example. But I can back up the importance of resurrection to the mythological being of Clovo. You see, Clovo actually demonstrated the power to resurrect in Greek mythology, bringing Pelops back to life. So, that's Clovo covered, but what about Lachesis, who determines the length of life? Well, I believe that Morai has also shown control over the length of Ahsoka's life. In Rebels, Ahsoka got into a fight with Vader, and reached a point where she should certainly have died. However, she didn't, and was instead pulled into the world between worlds by Ezra Bridger. This rescue wasn't solely Ezra's idea though, as Morai had actually guided Ezra to the door to save Ahsoka, and even encouraged Ezra to step in. I think that this example right here clearly shows how Morai could link to Lachesis, as it could be argued that Morai stepped in to prevent Ahsoka's death, demonstrating control over the length of Ahsoka's life. Morai may have also prevented Ahsoka from dying again in the Ahsoka show after Baylan defeated Ahsoka, but there's no evidence to suggest that Morai was involved in that so far. Moving on to Atropos, who controlled the manner of death, there's a very clear issue. That being that Ahsoka, since being resurrected, hasn't died in canon yet. Therefore, we can only theorize about this part. So, if the ideas I've suggested so far are true, we should be able to get an interesting insight into Ahsoka's death. That insight is that Morai will be involved in some way, and will be very important to how Ahsoka dies. This is because Atropos decided how beings died in Greek mythology. There's also the matter of Atropos technically being the one to kill every being, although not controlling when. And so, putting the pieces together, I'd say that Morai will likely be heavily involved in Ahsoka's death, deciding the right way for Ahsoka to die. Now, to be clear, I don't think that this is a case of Morai literally killing Ahsoka, but more of a case of allowing Ahsoka to die in a specific way. This would make a lot of sense, as according to this theory, Morai also has the ability to decide when Ahsoka dies. Anyway, that's how I think the name Morai links the Star Wars character to the Moirai in Greek mythology. And before I finish, I'd like to add one more piece of evidence to this theory. And that is that in old mythology, the Morai have been referred to as one being before. In Homer's Iliad, there is the being referred to as the Moira, who is linked to the thread of life like the Moirai are. This shows that even the idea of the Moirai being one figure sort of comes from mythology as well. However, I'm not sure just how similar in abilities/roles the Moira is to the Moirai. Also, I'd like to quickly add that I've just realised that Moira and Morai have the exact same letters in, just in a different order, which I think is kind of interesting and maybe adds to this theory as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this theory on Morai, and we hope to see you later at Vault Holocron.